Hallo Freunde und willkommen. Ich hoffe, Sie haben einen tollen Tag. And I think I need to squeeze in a little bit more German into all of my videos from now on because we have about 40 days until we are headed to Germany, and I really need to crack down on my German language studies. So maybe that's something I will start doing in my videos. Who knows? Today, let's talk about why Americans are leaving the United States, moving to Germany for work. And this video comes courtesy of my favorite couple in Germany, the Black Forrest Family. A link to the original video will be down below, and I'm not going to waste any more of your time, and we are just going to jump into the video.
It's just outrageous, and every time now that I think back on that, I'm like,
It makes you kind of sick.
does nobody else realize, I'm sorry, but like how up this is? It doesn't matter if you're lying on a beach or if you're lying in a hospital bed. Your employer doesn't care.
Nope.
Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. If you haven't watched us before, my name is Jonathan.
I'm Ashton.
And together with our son Jack, we are the Black Forrest Family. And in a few videos now, we've kind of danced around the topic of paid time off.
Yeah, this has actually come up. Probably the first time was in our healthcare part 2 video where we talked about some of the additional benefits like sick leave as part of the public health insurance scheme in Germany. But we've also talked about it a little bit in a pregnancy video, a little bit in the working in Germany video, and actually most recently this came up in a video we did just a couple of weeks ago on how to vacation like a German, in talking about vacation time and paid time off.
And while we've talked about this topic here and there, we really do think it is important enough and rich and deep enough that it deserves a dedicated video with one of our normal deep dives and examining the nuances of paid time off between Germany and the United States.
Yeah, exactly. You know, whether you need time off to take care of a loved one, to take care of a new baby, or maybe you just want the time off to explore a new exotic destination, in my case, find a new beach. To be quite honest with you guys, the differences between the US and Germany with paid time off is probably the most stark, the most dramatic culture shock, for lack of a better word, that we could probably point out. It's the biggest one.
And one of the biggest reasons why we are still enjoying our time here in Germany.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's give this topic the detail and attention that it deserves by doing a proper Black Forrest Family video and providing a comprehensive primer on paid time off between Germany and the United States. So let's dive in.
I love the fact that they actually do their research prior to their videos. They don't just say what they believe it to be true. They actually do the research, look up the numbers, and then have a solid foundation to explain the rest of their video.
Okay, so before we get started at looking at the national and regional differences, it's worth us explaining how the United States and how Germany defines this type of time off.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's funny. In most US companies, they're going to broadly refer to PTO, or paid time off. And that's interesting because in most employer HR guidelines, they're going to lump it all together. Paternity leave, maternity leave, sick leave, vacation time, it's all one thing. Whether you need a week or a couple of hours just to go to a doctor's office, it's all grouped together under paid time off.
So while there are, of course, some outliers, there are some companies that have their own specific rules. Overall, in general, with most companies, you have an 8-hour workday where if you take time away from your desk, those hours individually will be taken out of your PTO.
Yeah, so for example, if they were to say, sure, you get 10 days of paid time off. That would be 80 hours. And they will, in fact, deduct it to the hour of the time that you're away from your desk. Doesn't matter what you're doing. Time away is time away, period.
So by contrast, Germany has many different kinds of leave that are all federally regulated. So as a German, you are familiar with the Erholungsurlaub, which is vacation, Krankenstand, which is the sick leave, Elternzeit, which is parental leave, or the Mutterschutz, which is maternity leave. And that's just to name a few.
And while, yes, we do have some similar regulations and words that do translate into American English working regulations, the biggest difference here is that compared to Germany, these types of leave are largely unregulated. And for those states that do have some kind of law, you're gonna see huge differences, not just from state to state, but also from company to company. So it's really kind of a mixed bag, and I think that's probably going to be a huge theme throughout this entire video.
So let's take a closer look at how these different types of time off compare between Germany and the United States.
Okay, so I think the best place to start off this entire conversation is to start with the big guy, the biggest one on the list, which is probably the vacation time, right?
Everybody's favorite.
Everybody's favorite. So let's start by talking about what the regulations are, or lack thereof, in the United States.
So to get started, while Americans are entitled to 12 weeks of unpaid vacation time through the Federal Family and Medical Leave Act, there is no federally regulated vacation minimum.
So that
Zero.
inevitably means that more often than not, it's actually up to the individual states to make rules and regulations, but more frequently, it often just lands in the hands of individual companies to make up their own rules.
So most employees in the United States are given a set number of PTO days per their work contract. So according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics in 2017, employees who had worked for 1 year in the private industry received an average of 10 days of paid leave a year. And while those who had worked more than 20 years received an average of 23 days of paid leave per year.
So, in other words, the average American employee that would work for one of these private industry businesses can generally expect to gain 3 to 4 extra PTO days for every 5 years of service. Again, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. This data, stemming from a representative sample of U.S. workers, confirms that just like Germany, vacation days do increase over time. But according to the feds, by the time you've worked 10 years in the same employer, you've put 3 weeks of paid vacation in your pocket. And as you'll see in a second, that's gonna be pretty different from what you can expect in Germany, but I don't wanna get ahead of myself here too soon.
But I think it is important to point out that PTO is not only given to salary employees. Some
true.
businesses will give PTO to hourly employees, really kind of in the same way. You begin the year with a certain number of PTO and you can use it as you wish.
However, there are other businesses that will approach PTO in a completely separate way by actually asking their employees to accrue it over time as they work throughout the year. And let me explain. So in this case, earning, for example, 1 hour of PTO for every 40 hours that they work. This means that if an employee works a 40-hour work week, they will accrue 1 hour of PTO a week. So for example, if they work for 50 weeks of the year, they will have accumulated 50 hours of PTO. And essentially what this means is that they will only have 6.25 paid days off per year. And this is completely legal and completely allowed.
And
However,
a
by
joke.
contrast, here in Germany, things could not be more different. In fact, full-time workers are entitled to 24 days of paid vacation time. That's practically 5 weeks that you just get for working at a full-time job. And now granted, part-time workers, they do get pretty healthy paid time off as well. This, of course, is going to be given on a prorated basis depending on the number of hours that they work.
Yeah, typically most employers here in Germany will give even more days than that, typically
Yeah.
between 27 and 30 days.
Yeah.
I know for me personally, I came to Germany after working at a company for 1 year, and I went from my 10 days PTO to 25 days of vacation time. So for a very young guy living in Europe, this was just a revolutionary experience. I had all the time in the world to go home and see my family and just travel around Europe and enjoy myself.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible actually. And I think what really sort of just cements this even further is that, quite frankly, in Germany, you are required by law to take a vacation. I'm completely serious. And by the way, a vacation that is at a 2-week minimum.
So as we've commented time and time again, vacation time in Germany is highly valued.
Yeah.
So for one, bosses in Germany are not allowed to contact you while you're on vacation unless it is extremely urgent.
Yeah, I feel like, so by extremely urgent, I mean like hell needed to have frozen over, thawed, refroze again, and then like some like massive emergency had to have happened for them to ever dream about calling you on your vacation or getting a hold of you. Like it has to be, I mean, truly an emergency.
Yeah, all the contingency plans they had in place for you being gone have failed, and the entire business is about to go bankrupt.
Yes,
Something like that. But
something
anyway,
like that.
it is federally regulated that you must be able to take at least 2 continuous weeks off for your holiday to stay away from work, relax, and be ready to come back and charge again.
Yeah, it's just amazing. And while I don't want to get too carried away here, because we actually do have a couple of other points we need to mention before the end of this section, I do think it's worth mentioning here that it is actually legally allowed that you are usually able to roll over some of those vacation days as long as you use them by March 31st. However, it's going to vary from work contract to work contract because most work contracts will usually stipulate that they only allow you to roll them over if it's due to like really significant operational or personnel reasons that force you to roll them over. It's not always the case. Sometimes you have employers that are a little bit more lax about this and they just let you use it as long as you use it again in like the first quarter. But it's worth noting that that actually is legally protected.
So by contrast, if for some reason you don't get around to using your paid time off in the United States, it is worth noting that only some states have laws in place that will pay you for this paid time off you don't use or allow you to roll it over into the next year. It is important to note that there is no federally regulated law to
Protect this.
protect this.
Yeah, so businesses in other states, for example, may actually adopt a use it or lose it policy. If there's no law regulating that they allow people to roll it over, if you just have unused PTO, they just simply disappear. And that's important because according to a study from the US Travel Association's Project Time Off, 52% of Americans didn't even use all of their vacation days in 2017.
Okay, a couple things here. I want to make clear that when you start a new job, you don't get a bank of PTO right off the bat. At least in a lot of jobs. You have to start accruing them when you start working. And some places actually require a waiting period. They have a grace period, a probationary period of 30, 60, 90 days before you ever receive any benefits at all. Medical benefits, whatever. I know the job that I'm at now, day one, you start accruing your PTO, your paid time off, but it was a 30-day period before you started receiving any other of the insurance benefits. So there are some companies as well. The last one that I worked for, it was a security company, and they changed their policy because here in Arizona, a few years ago, they implemented a new law requiring employers to offer sick paid time. That was never a law. That was never a thing. If they didn't want to give you sick time, you were using your paid time off to cover illnesses. So they required employers to offer sick pay, sick time off. Well, the company that I worked for changed their policy so that now you have to work 3 years. 3 years before you get a single hour of paid time off. 3 years. Now, when I was working there, when I started, after the first year, I got a week off. After the second year, I got 2 weeks off. I was within weeks, maybe a couple months, of hitting my 2-year mark, and my wife and I had plans to go back to Germany for a couple weeks. So I was going to use that time to go back. Well, they had changed this policy before that. This gets me every time I have to bring it up or talk about it. They canceled my PTO. Basically, I started back over from zero. They took it away from me. And I was so livid that they gave me a week off. So I didn't go back to Germany. I didn't have the time to go back. I couldn't afford not to get paid for a whole week. So my wife and boys went. I stayed here. And for anybody going into that job now, they don't get any paid time off for 3 years. And then they wonder why nobody wants to work for these companies. It's not a worker shortage. It's not any of that BS. It's the employers taking advantage of the employees and not paying them, not offering them benefits. So you start accruing after whatever time frame that company has told you in their contract or in your employment agreement or whatever. And a lot of these places, they lump it all together, like they said. So you don't get separate paid time off and separate sick pay. So you can't use, if you're sick, my sick time. That's all considered one. So if I got sick and I couldn't work, I have to use my paid time off. I have to use my vacation time because I'm sick. It's not a separate thing. It's all lumped into one. And to get that graphic they showed, the 50 hours or the 6.25 days a year. I mean, you have to really like what you're doing to stay with the company for 11 plus years, 15, 20 years. And then even at that, then you're basically getting 3 weeks off after 20 years. It's so ridiculous.
And once again, sick leave is something that is extremely different between the United States and Germany, and one of the other reasons why we have chosen to continue living and working and studying here.
Yeah, exactly. So, just like vacation time, sick leave is another one of those things that there really isn't any sort of federal mandate about given paid time off specifically for. Now, again, you are probably going to be subject to the Family and Medical Leave Act, or the FMLA. This act does require unpaid sick leave, but unpaid. FMLA provides for up to 12 weeks of unpaid leave for certain medical situations for either the employee or for a member of the employee's immediate family. But here's the crazy part. Employees are only eligible to take FMLA leave if they have worked for their employer for at least 12 months and have worked for at least 1,250 hours over the previous 12 months, and work at a location where there are at least 50 employees employed by the employer within 75 miles.
So basically what that means for small businesses in the United States, they are not required to follow the FMLA, and they can offer you only 4 to 6 weeks of unpaid leave or None at all.
Nope.
What that means is if you're sick and you're not able to show up for work, they are legally allowed to fire you.
Yeah, if you're out of PTO.
Right to work state. So Arizona is a right to work state. I know Wyoming, where I'm from, is a right to work state. And that means basically that the employer can fire you for whatever reason. They don't even have to have a reason. They can just straight up fire you because they don't like what you wore to work that day, and you can't do anything about it. You may be able to collect unemployment, but you're out of a job.
If you're out of PTO.
They're allowed to fire you, which is insane. And again, I feel like this is sort of the whole point of all of this is that when referring to time off, we keep saying PTO because in the United States, for a ton of workers, vacation time and sick time are one and the same.
It's the time away from your desk.
Yep, they're grouped together. It doesn't matter if you're lying on a beach or if you're lying in a hospital bed. Your employer doesn't care. You're not at your desk, away from that PTO, and once it's gone, and yeah, they can fire you.
And there are very few exceptions to this rule. There are laws on the books in certain states, cities, counties, and towns that require employers to provide paid time off for short-term health needs and preventative care. The only states, as of 2022, with paid sick leave laws are California, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Oregon, and Vermont.
Yeah, so in a couple videos now, I've shared the story. So if you've watched them, I hope this isn't redundant, but I feel like, again, this is worth saying. So in my job in the United States, again, working for academia, we were given a set number of PTO days. While I was working there, there was another employee who unfortunately was diagnosed with cancer. And rather than the university giving this person additional time off to rest and recover at home or have time to go to their chemo treatments, instead, what they did was host a PTO drive where us fellow university employees were asked to donate our paid time off so that that person could still receive a paycheck to pay their bills while they're battling cancer. And that's not only considered completely normal, but a wonderful and nice thing to offer. Whereas now that I live in Germany, I'm like, why wasn't the university helping this person?
It's like a GoFundMe for PTO, which again, GoFundMe is also...
It's just outrageous. And every time now that I think back on that, I'm like...
It makes you kind of sick.
It does. Yeah. Does nobody else realize, I'm sorry, but how effed up this is? That's just outrageous.
Yeah.
It's
disgusting.
Just so sad.
We live to work. Employers don't give two shits about any of their employees. Not all of them. Some, that's a general broad statement that doesn't include every employer out there, but they really don't. They don't care. You're a number. They will replace you. You are replaceable. And if you're not going to do it, somebody else more than happy to move into that position until they can't do it.
Ugh.
Yeah. So, but by contrast, and to try to lighten the mood here a little bit, taking time away if you're sick in Germany is not discouraged. It's actually encouraged. I know my own employer, if anybody in the office is feeling ill, it is best to go home. Just go home, relax, recover, do not stay in the office and make everybody else sick.
I really understand why, Americans moving to Germany and they come across this and they feel bad about going home, or they're like, no, I can work through it. I know I would feel that way. I'd feel, I don't know if guilty is the right word, but I can do it, or be worried about losing your job or not being able to pay for stuff. I know we're brought up in this system to the point where you go and experience another system, and it's so out of the ordinary that I can understand why Americans over there or any other country, well, no, it's pretty much the United States, moving over there would feel weird about going home because they're sick, which you should never feel weird about. It's odd. I don't know.
And again, in the United States with PTO, you might not have any days off because you have a vacation coming up. People often come in even if they're sick. And unfortunately, that means everybody gets sick.
Yeah.
And now that we're at the end of this pandemic, it really kind of hits home of how bad this can get.
Yeah, exactly. I really feel sort of like the German laws, they really do prioritize the workers' health and well-being, and it's a really refreshing departure. If you're employed in Germany, you're legally entitled to fully paid sick leave for up to a continuous 6 weeks, but only if you can present a sick note called an Arbeitsunfähigkeitsbescheinigung in German from your doctor.
And in the unfortunate event that you do have a long-term illness, after 6 weeks of regular paid sick leave, you'll receive Krankengeld, which is literally translated to sick money, for a maximum of 90% of your wage after taxes, up to a maximum of 112 euros and 88 cents per day as of today in 2022, for up to 72 weeks and a 3-year period.
And in the unfortunate event that you actually fall ill during a scheduled vacation time, if you get a note from your doctor, you can actually get those vacation days back, because sick time and vacation time are totally separate things in Germany.
Crazy
if you're
concept.
sick on your vacation, you're not resting, which is what the vacation was supposed to be for, and you deserve those days back so you can be rested.
Go figure.
Yeah, so for example, we were just in Thailand, and if in the unfortunate event that I was ill, if I could document it, yeah, we could have all of those or some of those days back, which
Makes absolute sense. That's what it's for.
Exactly.
Perfect sense.
All right, everybody, for this next one, especially for our German audience, if you weren't already in complete shock about the regulations or lack thereof
Yeah.
with paid time off in the United States, this one right here is probably going to fully cement it for you. So let's talk about maternity leave.
Yeah, so let's not beat around the bush. I'll just get straight to the point here. The United States is the only OECD country with no federally mandated maternity, paternity, or parental leave. There is no nationwide regulation on this.
Sickening.
So once again, we're going to have to point back to the Family and Medical Leave Act, which we've already brought up a couple of times.
Yep.
And basically this means that parents can go on maternity leave or family leave after the adoption or birth of a child. Under this law, legal parents are protected for up to 12 weeks of unpaid leave per year.
And I feel like here, whereas before we've emphasized the word unpaid, I think that's pretty clear at this point. But there's another word in that law that I find particularly interesting. It's after the birth or adoption of the child. And there again is a huge departure from German regulations, because in the United States, you're only protected to get that time off unpaid after the birth of a child. There's nothing in any law written about the time before the baby is born.
Yeah, not like you have to
so
go to the
in
doctor
the US,
before
it
you
is
have a kid.
completely common that women will work up to the day they give birth. And weirdly, my mom, if you're watching this video, you're kind of the perfect example of this. She tells a story all the time that she actually went to work the day she had me. And she had a doctor's appointment on her lunch hour. And they told her, they're like, yeah, you're gonna have a baby today. And she's like, oh man, I guess I'll go to the hospital. And I just like showed up a couple of hours later.
Here comes Ashton.
Here comes Ashton. Yeah, like, but the thing is, guys, this is totally normal. Like, women who are heavily pregnant are likely to still be at work.
Up until the last hour. Yeah.
Up until the last hour sometimes. But we also should probably, again, emphasize this whole like unpaid part, because during these 12 weeks, while your job is protected, your paycheck isn't really necessarily. So that's why in the US, that often this falls to either individual states to make these mandates and regulations, or individual companies, which I feel like is honestly more common, because offering paid maternity leave or paid parental leave is seen as a way for private businesses to attract employees to their company.
They can differentiate themselves from other companies.
Right, yeah, they can set themselves apart by saying like, hey, we offer 3 months of paid paternity leave or paid maternity leave.
So I'm going to go work there and not this other place.
Right, so I'm going to work there. Yeah, it's not something that's like equal across the board. Rather, it's like a bargaining chip to go work for a company.
Which leads to a pretty mixed bag of state benefits
Yeah.
depending on where you are employed. So there are 9 states such as California, Colorado, Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, Oregon, Rhode Island, and Washington, and the District of Columbia, which offer paid family and maternity leave. But in all 9 of these states, the law is clear. These benefits don't begin until after the baby's born.
Yeah, and in contrast, that honestly couldn't be more different to what we actually have here in Germany, where new mothers are entitled to 14 weeks of paid maternity leave, both to be split before and after your baby arrives.
And you know, really, as an American, we weren't really used to anyone having our back like that. Not the government, not an employer, not anybody.
No, and you know, I just feel like in a way, it's really nice to have laws that are human.
Ah, now that's a concept, huh?
Okay, so for this next one, this is for you, any Americans who are watching this video, because we do actually have to have a separate section for this. This is parental leave or Elternzeit here in Germany, and this is completely different than the Mutterschutz or the maternity leave.
Yeah, so I feel like probably for the Americans, this comes as no surprise, but maybe for the Germans, you might find this pretty shocking. Similar to maternity leave, but I feel like even more dramatically so. Parental leave in the United States, it largely doesn't exist from a regulatory standpoint.
So in the last section, we did mention that there were 9 states plus the District of Columbia, which had paid family and maternity leave. And this included fathers. They actually qualified to take the time off as well.
Yeah, which that's fantastic, but I don't want to be Debbie Downer over here, but I should also mention that also means that there are 41 other states that have nothing in the laws that require paid time off after the birth of a child for the mother or the father, which is, again, I feel like why it's worth mentioning that this is, again, why family leave is used as a bargaining chip for many private industry companies to attract workers to come work for them. That it'll be an attractive benefit that they will offer to potential
Is that
employees.
in Germany right there?
But by contrast,
24
under
weeks.
German law, new mothers and fathers are entitled to take something called Elternzeit. Both parents can use this parental allowance to alleviate any loss of their earnings during this period, and they can choose to use the parental leave anytime between their child's birth and their 3rd birthday. And they can take the leave simultaneously or separately.
So now, you know, during this time, you're not going to receive 100% of your normal paycheck here in Germany, but in the 9 US states, you're also not going to receive 100% of your normal paycheck during this time.
Yeah, that is fair. So during Elternzeit, normally these parents will also apply for something called Elterngeld. This is a state-funded program which pays up to 1,800 euros a month to compensate for the lack of salary that they would have during this extended parental leave. But importantly in Germany, a parent who is taking Elternzeit can decide to not work at all or only work part-time, up to 32 hours a week. And most importantly, and really this is the key here, guys, your job is protected during parental leave. So even if you've been gone for 2 years during an extended parental leave, you can still come back to your job, your exact position. It's protected.
Yeah, there might be somebody filling in for you with a temporary
Yeah.
employment during this time. That's their contract, but once you come back, they're gone and you have your job again.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Another, don't know why they didn't mention, maybe they will, but actually it doesn't look like it now. But Kindergeld, I think that's still a thing over there. I know that we received that when we were living in Germany, and even though our oldest son wasn't born in Germany when we lived over there, because my wife was a German citizen, we got Kindergeld, which is child money. So the German government will pay a certain amount for your child, for each child, and it decreases with age, I believe, all the way until they're 18. Obviously, when they're 18 or getting close, it's not that much, but I know we got money every month for our son, and that's to help balance out the cost to having a kid, because if you have kids, you know how expensive it can be. So I'm surprised they didn't mention the Kindergeld as well in there.
I want to make a movie. Where does the process begin? It begins with finding the idea.
All right, guys, so I feel like before we end this video, it is important to note that what we've talked about thus far is by no means a complete comprehensive list of all of the different types of federally protected leave that you have here in Germany.
Plus, there are a number of other federal and state holidays,
Yeah.
which brings us to the next point where we ask you to help us with our next video.
Yeah, so for our next video that we're planning, we're going to be doing a deep dive into federal and state holidays between the US and Germany. Specifically, we're really interested in learning more about those unique holidays. Now, I need to clarify here, I'm not talking about those weird, obscure, like weirdly hardly ever known about holidays. Like, for example, did you know that in the United States on January 21st, there's something called Squirrel Appreciation Day?
Did you just make that up?
I didn't. I actually looked this one up. There is something called Squirrel Appreciation Day. You know what? They deserve some appreciation too.
Do they? They're like the worst creatures in the world.
I don't know. The ones we saw in Treberg were actually quite
It's true,
entertaining.
they had mohawks.
They did have mohawks.
They're pretty.
Pigeons
Yeah.
are the worst
But
creatures
no,
in
we're
the
actually
world.
talking about holidays that businesses shut down, and most importantly for children,
Yeah.
getting the day off from school.
Yeah, so for example, who is Casimir Pulaski and why do Illinois school kids get the day off?
And why do Pennsylvanians look for a skittish groundhog out of a hole to predict the seasons every February 2nd?
Yeah, these are some great examples here. But the thing is, we honestly haven't been living in Germany long enough to learn all of the nuances of the individual states, regions, or cities that might actually have some pretty similar holidays.
And we haven't lived in every US state to know them all by heart, and
Nope.
we know there are tons of really goofy holidays out there. But this is the time we want to ask you. Please let us know down in the comments below.
Yeah, exactly. What are the unique holidays that are in your personal state, city, region? What can you share with us that's a unique holiday that you find interesting? And kind of counter to that, how do you celebrate it? Please let us know down in the comment section below.
All right, everybody, that wraps up our video for today. And as usual, if you liked what you saw today, be sure to hit that thumbs up button.
And for more content from the Black Forrest family, hit that subscribe button.
And until next time, bis bald.
Cheers!
Oh, I like bloopers. Let's watch some bloopers.
Or maybe you just want to take some time off to go visit an exotic place and a new beach. It's been so... I guess how really time off... I'm babbling now, sorry.
And by contrast, Germany has many different... No. And by contrast, Germany has many different name... What? By the federal of... The federal what? Federal Family and Medical Act?
Medical Leave Act.
Federal and Medical Leave Act, which
Federal family. And again, guys...
Hold on, I'm still licking my lips. Got wine on them, they're chapped.
Okay.
They're all glossy. Not wearing lip gloss. Sparkles in the wine at least.
You're really talkative. Or an Arbeitsunfähigkeitsbescheinigung.
Nein, Bescheinigung. You should
Bescheinigung?
probably say that one a few more times.
God, this is a...
Arbeitsunfähig. I can't even do it.
Okay, this word I think has more letters than the entire alphabet.
Arbeitsunfähigkeitsbescheinigung.
There's no R. Unfähigkeits.
Arbeitsunfähigkeitsbescheinigung. Arbeitsunfähigkeitsbescheinigung. This was not in our class.
I feel like this is one of those like words that I feel like when you're at the Ausländerbehörde and they're like, how badly do you want to be a German citizen? How fast can you say this word? Say it 5 times really fast.
Arbeitsunfähigkeitsbescheinigung.
Arbeitsunfähigkeitsbescheinigung.
Arbeitsunfähigkeitsbescheinigung. Arbeitsunfähigkeitsbescheinigung.
Dear God. All right, let's try that again. Probably also mention. Oops.
Oh God.
It's okay.
Oh God.
I fixed it.
Oh God, it's ruined.
I fixed it.
We have to start all over again.
Okay. Okay, ready?
Okay, so the bloopers were pretty fun, weren't they? I really don't have much I can add to this except for the United States is abusing its citizens to the point where nobody wants to live here anymore. It just doesn't make any sense to me that employers don't want to take care of their employees. Because if you don't take care of your employees, they don't take care of you. And they will leave. And then you're spending more money training new people to come in for a few months until they get smart about the way the employers are running things, and then they leave. And it's just a never-ending cycle. If you took care of your employees, if you gave them paid time off, if you gave them maternity and paternity leave, if you gave them these benefits, they'd be more apt to stick around and work, you know? Like the last video about that moron bragging about how the United States works more than any other country. That's just nonsense. When other countries can work less than that, quite a bit less than that, and get just as much, if not more, accomplished. You know, employers need to take care of their people, and their people will take care of them. And it's just not going to happen in the United States. Too many people in charge wanting too much money and not caring about the people who are actually making them that money, which just blows my mind that these people don't realize that without the worker, they are nobody. Absolutely nobody. They would be living on the street as well. So, very good video. I really enjoy the Black Forrest family. I hope one day I run into them over there in Germany. I think it would be a lot of fun. I am still trying to get my wife to get on here with me. I don't know if she's going to do it or not. So if not, you know, I'm not going to push her to do it. If she's not comfortable doing it, then she's not comfortable doing it. That's fine. But I will probably watch that video first and then have the list of food. And I'm talking about the food that's illegal in the United States, but apparently Germans love it. Whatever. But I'd like to get an idea, so maybe I'll get that list of food from her or from the video, ask her about it, get her thoughts on it. That way I have a more educated comment on what I'm watching instead of just staring here, you know, looking like I'm smart when I probably don't have a clue what they're talking about. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as you could, knowing that the United States doesn't give two beans about their employees and won't give them the time off necessary and will fire them if they get sick and then they end up dying and, you know, whatever. How depressing. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I'll catch you later. Bye.